This is Ernie Johnson Jr. Sports is about overcoming obstacles, and college coaches work hard to help young men overcome Duchenne muscular dystrophy. It's called Coach to Cure MD, and you can help. Text the word CURE to 501-501 to donate $25 on your next mobile phone bill, or go online to coachtocuremd.org. Text the word CURE to 501-501. Help coaches cure MD.
Sponsored by the American Football Coaches Association. Texting and data rates may apply.
This week on Inside the Headset, we are featuring Luther College's head coach, Joe Troche. Coach Troche discusses his recruiting philosophy, creating a new culture, and his emphasis on hiring and retaining the right people on staff. Now, let's get inside the headset with Coach Troche.
Coach, what's going on? Thanks for joining us.
Mario, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no doubt, man. Well, it's always good when the coach can take a little time to join us, but it's even more special when the head ball coach can spend some time with us, because we know how often you get the knock on the door, the email, or a text or call, just pulling you in all the directions. So thanks for finding 20 minutes for us. Now, speaking of being a head ball coach, it's your first season as you know as at the reins of Luther College. Tell us about the journey, how you made it to that position, and kind of what your vision is.
Yeah, so really fortunate. I'm originally from Orlando, Florida. My dad was military, so we traveled all over. So moving for me is kind of just in my DNA.
Yeah.
And went to school in Minnesota at St. Olaf College, had a great experience, and played for two great coaches. And they are people that really impacted me, but also really my high school coaches. Coach Williams, my position coach, Coach Woodward. I mean, these are guys I go back and see all the time. And I didn't know at the time I wanted to get into coaching. And then when I got to college, my first coach, Coach Mike, ended up leaving after my sophomore year to go to Redskins. And he was, brilliant. The 2 years I was with him, the offense was top 5 in the country. And, this guy's onside kicking in the, first quarter, get the ball back, just super analytical. And you're like, wow,
yeah.
I just learned so much from being there. I didn't play those first 2 years, but watching from a distance was great. And then Coach OJ, who took over after that, he's head coach at Augustana and Sioux Falls. He's my mentor. I really learned how it was to connect with people, how to build relationships and not be transactional. So that was huge for me. And from there, I kind of was like, wow, I want to do this. And then from there, I went to the University of Wisconsin-Eau Claire as a graduate assistant and spent time at Hamline University, where I was in admissions and football. And that's where I think I really separated myself and truly understood the recruiting process and what that looked like. And so I kind of cheated because I was doing admissions and football. So I had 2 jobs at once. And then I was doing brewery tours on the weekends and stuff. I wasn't married at the time. I had a lot of time. And it wasn't like that, a bunch of podcasts and all this stuff back then, or at least I didn't know about it. So I had to find ways to fill the role. And then I was fortunate enough to get the job at Olaf. And we played Luther. As a player, I coached against it, and I would actually always drive separate when I was at St. Olaf, and I would drive through the area in Decorah, and I always thought, God, this is so beautiful. In another life, maybe I could be a coach here. My wife's in advertising.
Yeah.
She's really good, and she needs to be in a big city, so I never even considered it. And then COVID, as terrible as it's been really good for our family. We had our daughter, and then we had my wife kind of bet on herself and started working remotely. And got to a point where it's like, hey, I can work anywhere in the country. Where do you want to go?
Yeah.
I was like, well, this job opened up Luther. And it's got the 2 things I think you need, which is an elite education. We're top 100 liberal arts college, and then a great college town. We got a river runs through it, and there's so much to do. We got great support. So that sold me early on. I was like, I can build it if you have those 2 things.
Yeah. Well, you know what? It's you said something interesting there. A lot of times you get these podcasts going and talking to coaches, and they have some unique thing where somebody that's interviewing within the last couple of weeks, they also served as a tennis coach for a little bit, or they were a PE instructor at the University of College. Admissions. This is the first time I've heard admissions, and so I'm curious of how that helped you. Down the road, especially for the role that you're in now. I'm sure you were able to learn maybe how to evaluate transcripts in a different way or something like that. But what did that role do for you that you kind of won't forget?
There's so many things. I feel like I do a podcast alone on this. So my supervisor, Milan Trilov, he's the VP, I think, at Reed College now, and he was tough. And he was, he really reminded me of like my coaches at Pop Warner. It was just hard on me. Like, would give me a task, and I was young. It was like really like my first job out of college after being a GA.
Yeah.
And I did a poor job. Like, I would just do the minimum, and he'd come, I'd bring it to him, and he's like, yeah, like, I need more information. Like, I can't help you. Right? He'd give me a task, and it was my job to do the task as far as I could. And if I couldn't, get more information. So it's like, hey, you asked me to do this. I wasn't able to, but here's some options. Not did the minimum and then went to him to hold my hand. So like, he really held me accountable at a level that I had not been held to since I played. And then the admissions piece, just the professionalism, having to really understand what makes you distinct, what makes you stand out. And we had some really great exercises that we did to help us do that. So we talk about those things. I learned quickly that recruiting is all about listening.
Yeah.
Like, I think I'm a better husband because of my time in admissions. Of like, hey, you're really listening more than you're talking, and then finding out what's important to them, and then sharing that information.
That's exactly right. I love that you pointed that. I actually was just talking to somebody and kind of mentioned the same thing. Now you talked about that Tom there and that guy who was so influential in how you probably now do things, and that. I don't know if you would consider him a mentor, but you made mention of some coaches that you deemed as mentors. You know, who are some of the guys that maybe not just impactful in you getting into the profession, but are impactful for you've been prepared for this role at Luther?
Yeah, I would say that the coach that recruited me, Rob McCarthy at St. Olaf, again, like indirectly, like it wasn't intentional. He just showed me through his actions, like how to recruit and how to treat people. And then my position coach, Justin Lerfald, showed me like what it was like to be an expert in your field, where you knew he was good because he'd give you a drill or something, and then you would see immediate success, right? So you could see it now. It wasn't like, hey, I need to fail a little bit and figure it out. Like, he would teach you some things that you saw immediate success, so he just gained instant credibility, and then he would get to know you. And then Coach OJ was just, he had it all. When I first met him, so he got the job. Again, he's taken over a program that's gone 8-2 like the last 4 years, so it was a good job, and it's high academic, and he had better things to do. And I went in there, introduced myself, and I think we talked for like 45 minutes, and we never talked about football. And I don't even know if he remembers, but I was in there. I missed my workout because I just stopped in to say hi, and I sat down, and we're just kicking it. And next thing I know is like, this is my guy, right? Like, if I ever need anything, he finds time for me, and that guy doesn't have time. But I've learned from him as well, seeing him, it's not the time you spend with people, it's the quality, right? He's a father, he's a husband, he's a man of faith, and he lives it, right? It's, do you do the things you say that you're going to do? And he does. So that's been huge for me. And then the head coach I worked for at Hamline, I really worked for two, but Chip Taylor was the one that gave me a lot of autonomy to kind of grow, and he put up with I'm a hard guy to work with, and he put up with me. I learned a lot from him, and James Killian at St. Olaf as well, really gave me the autonomy to run with things. And we had a great relationship, and he let me run with recruiting, special teams, and that was huge for me. And I've learned as a coach, as an assistant, like you have to empower people. And even though they don't run it or do things the way you want, it's not about that, right? Are they doing a good job? And one thing we just talked about is like, hey, this is my program. I want things done a certain way, right? But you all have your own flavor, right? You got your own style. Like, as long as you get it done, I'm cool with that.
Yeah. Well, you kind of mentioned you having a program and running it your own way, and so now you got that opportunity to have a program, run it your own way, and that entails recruiting. And you spent a couple years as a recruiting coordinator there at St. Olaf, and then obviously, admissions, like you said, there's such a strong tie into the recruiting process as well. So you had the time at Hamline there as well as working in admissions. So how have you? Let's be pretty straightforward here. The last couple of years at Luther have been tough. Prior to you coming here, won one game over the last 2 seasons. What's your plans for recruiting and how you implement maybe some of the stuff that you learned along the way, some of those other spots?
Yeah. So I've told our staff I'm going to create the message, and recruiting is probably the one thing I'm not going to budge on. Like, this is how we do things, and we're going to have a standard, and that's it. Guys can, their voices will be different, but the message is the same.
Yeah.
And so, I've sat in on meetings with our coaches, and you have to have high character, low ego. There's a lot of ego in this industry.
Absolutely.
And, for me to become a head coach at this age, just because of my experience in recruiting, it wasn't X's and O's. I think this was the perfect job for me in terms of my background and what they need. But we're going to be really unapologetic of who we are. And I think it's helped us. When we took over, we didn't have a single deposit in December. When I left St. Olaf, we had, I think going on over 20. So like, we were rolling.
Yeah.
And we're over 23 now. And part of it is we're just unapologetic of who we are. And we do the things we say we're going to do. We say, hey, you want to be challenged academically. You want to be around families, because our kids are all around us, right? Like, this is who we are. If you don't want to be around our kids, you ain't gonna like it here.
Yeah.
So I've just learned you got to be yourself. You got to figure out what's distinct about you. What do you do that other schools don't do?
I love that. Yeah.
Right. Because where we're at, if you look at Decorah, it's beautiful, but you draw a 6-hour radius, you got Division II, Division III. Like, why are kids gonna drive by North Central and all these other powerhouses to come see us? Right? It's because, well, there's a beautiful college town where you can float down the river, and then there's, breweries, there's just there's all these great things to do, and we're a destination. You don't come here by accident. If you're here, it's because it's intentional.
Yeah.
And so when people are intentional, you have similar values. It's a real community, which is what honestly society needs, right?
Yeah.
Like, it takes a village, and people believe that here.
Man, that's funny. You just said all that stuff, and I'm smiling and nodding. If you just listen to the podcast, me and him can see each other. You just said so many good points there, and so I'm going to ask you this question. You take over a spot, or you take over as a recruiting coordinator in St. Olaf, and you go to these places. You mentioned the river, the breweries, all these unique things that you can use as also selling points on top of the tremendous academics that you guys have. Like, how did you go indulge in that and learn about that? You know what I mean? Because you have to know about it to sell it, right? And so, what did you do to go learn about it initially when you took the job?
Man, you go to the source. I mean, I got a notebook. Man, I got literally like a notebook. I mean, you can't see the
yeah.
camera, but everybody I met with, from our academic support, from admissions, from financial aid, from our career center, from counseling, I just went to them, and a lot of those interactions have reaffirmed my decision, our family's decision to come here, because you can go online, you can read something, but
yeah,
you're not getting the meat and potatoes of it.
No doubt.
Right? I mean, I go and meet with people, I talk to them, and then the follow-up's like, can we get in front of your kids? I'm like, absolutely. So we've just got everybody in front of our team. And my goal as a head coach is to take excuses out of it. So, kid can't say to me, Coach, I don't know where I go to find a tutor. Yeah, you do, because here's a link in Google. You click on it, it takes you to it. Oh, you don't know how to get there? Well, here's a QR code. Like, we try to take all the excuses out of it. Like, I'm telling you, we have our players, they're going to be late. They got a meeting. They text their coordinators. The coordinator gives me a Post-it note with all the kids. And I start meeting saying, hey, Jimmy and John are not going to be here on time. They're excused. Because these are kids. And if they don't have the answer, they're going to fill it in with negative thoughts. So I want to take all the excuses out. Hey, guys, these guys are going to come in late. So when they come in and disrupt the meeting, don't even think anything negative. It's already excused.
I love it, man. You seems like you got a great plan moving forward here, and so I do want to talk a little bit more about that. I kind of talked a little bit earlier about being 1-21. Have won one game out of his last 21 outings there at Luther. What's been your focus to get these guys to buy into your system, to get out that understand that winning is okay. Just whatever the culture is there, but maybe shifting it a little bit more to what your vision is. What has been the plan to execute that?
Yeah, and I've learned this the hard way. I was that young coach who just spent all summer, going over X's and O's. I had all the answers, and we had a really good run out of school at Hamline. We took over as a one-win team and went 5-5. And it was, we're 6 points away from 7-3. We did some great things. We had a lot of sophomores that played, and we're like, man, let's just keep rolling the way we do things. And then got to the senior year. Their senior year was really toxic. I just wasn't prepared because I didn't develop them, and as a staff, we didn't develop them as leaders. We did a poor job, and I learned from that big time.
Yeah.
And it was really, really hard because I thought I was putting our players in the best position to succeed, and ultimately, I didn't develop them enough as leaders. And you could argue too, I didn't connect with them enough. And so I learned from that, like, you got to build trust with these kids. And that was the number one thing when I got here. The day after I got here, they all left for Christmas break. So I had to get on Zooms. I had to connect with them all one-on-one. I had them fill out surveys to gather information about their experience, who are leaders in the program, and then, try and spend as much time with them as possible. Try to break bread with them when they're on campus. Because, my family's from Puerto Rico. Food unites everyone. I should say this: good or bad food, right? Because either you're gonna, talk about it in a good way or a bad way.
Right.
So just building trust with our guys, connecting with them, and the old saying is like they don't care until they know you care.
Right.
So we talk about Brian Kite's the 3 C's, right? Confidence, character, connection. So I tell our guys, hey, they're going to feel you and see you before they ever hear you. Right? Hear you is confidence, right? How good are you as a football coach? They don't know if you can't connect with them as a human being. And, how do you make them feel when you're with them? Are you making eye contact, or are you on your phone? Or are you in a rush? So we just try to be real present with our players. And at our level, we got to recruit them for 4 years.
Yeah.
Like now with the transfer portal, we're constantly recruiting year round, our players and future players. And you do that with your behavior, right? You do the things that you say you're going to do.
No question. Well, we talked a lot about recruiting student athletes and your experiences at Hamline and St. Olaf. But I want to ask a little bit about a lot of your answers have been geared around not just how you're delivering the message, but the staff is making sure your staff is delivering the program's message and all these types of things. So talk to us a little bit about taking over that program, but also getting a staff of guys that you trusted in to help bring your vision and make it come alive.
Yeah. So for me, it was really important that I hired good people.
Yeah.
And good people, right? I got their own definition, but someone that my daughter can be held by, right? That there's no hesitation, like, hey, take my daughter, right? Or hey, my wife needs a ride to the airport. I want good people here, and most important, people that want to come here and be here. I had some friends that were like, hey, I can't wait to work for you, but just I'm gonna commute an hour from Rochester or La Crosse. I'm like, nope, like, you got to live here, you got to be all in. And I told our players that you got to be a good person to be here, and you got to want to be here because this place is special. We're not, you're just not gonna have one foot in.
Yeah,
like, you got to be all in.
And as far as your maybe interview process or maybe more your staff makeup at the moment, did you retain anybody? Did you anybody old coaches you used to work with? Anybody brand new? How what's your staff makeup like currently?
Yeah, I'll say it's hard. It's hard hiring folks, but from I might be crazy, but from like a young age, I literally have a notebook. I got this little notebook, and I put in there OC, DC, special teams coordinator, your part-time coach, assistant, and I always have a running list. And I told our staff, when you go to camps, you're recruiting, but you're also interviewing coaches.
Yeah.
Who do you want to work with you? Because this is the best field in the world. Everybody wants to do it, so there's a lot of average people that do it. We spend more time with our coaches than we do our families. They need to be great people.
Mm-hmm.
Like at the bare minimum, somebody I can go drink beer with, for the love of God, right? Like,
right.
So I tell them, when you watch them coach and you see them when they let their guard down, like, is that a good person? When you go grab beers, like, you're spending time with these people, you really get to know them.
Yeah.
In an interview, you don't get any of that, right? Even if you do like a mock recruiting call or you get them on the field to coach you up, there's some really creative ways. But for me, it's I've got to experience them, and it's got to be somebody I trust that has experienced them. Because the other thing I got this from my mentor, I thought was really good. He said when he gets references, he actually will try to call at least 1 or 2 people not on there. So try to find, because right, you're more than likely, if you're smart, you're going to put someone on your reference that's going to say good things about you.
Absolutely.
So what I thought was really interesting is like, hey, find someone that's worked with this guy and ask them. And, this guy, we're all separated by like 2 people. Like it's actually not that hard to find someone that's worked with the coach.
I love it, man. Well, regardless of how prepared we are for anything in life, Taz, like, been a head coach, definitely a lot of curves I'm sure you've seen even in your short time, been a head coach there. As you guys wrapped up spring ball, what was one of the things that maybe was a little shock factor for you that you said, man, I wasn't ready for that, or I got to do better at this, or just something you want to improve on, or weren't prepared for walking into that role after spring? Not much anything.
Question. There's too much. No. I mean, the number one thing I'm proud of is just empowering our coaches and spending time with their players.
Yeah.
The stuff they don't talk to you about is what you sacrifice. And maybe that's not even the right word, like the trade-offs. I love being a head coach because I control my time, and I spend every morning with my daughter and my wife. But man, I've done less X and O's than ever. And that's like what got me into it in the relationship. And I've just like skewed so much the other way where, and our department's different. All of our head coaches are in a different part of the building. And then my staff's got their own area. So I go in there and those guys are just eating it up, having a good time talking ball. I'm like, man, I'm missing out on this.
Yeah.
And I just, I told our players this. I said, guys, I'm not having fun right now because in practice, I'm just coaching up our culture, our tempo, watching one-on-ones, teaching guys how to do things the right way on 7-on-7 to the overhang, miss the force. We talk about, we're one of 2 teams in the country got blue field. So we talk about blue collar plays and blue collar points. Are you doing the nitty gritty things that really are the more important things that you get no credit for? Did you spill the ball? Did you force it? Did you win your leverage? Like these are the things that I'm constantly harping on. And I'm not, did we hit the movement? Right? Did we, did the quarterback have the right read? Like these are just things I'm not looking at like I used to. I'm just focused on, hey, when coach called you out there, did you run out there? Like just these little things. Like it seems elementary, but to me, like how we practice is the most important thing. We got to be able to do that at a high level. I don't care, man, if we're running triple option or spread or what, but when coach says sideline go, you run to the sideline, right? And we're going tempo, you're running. That ain't a time to ask questions. So just the culture part, God, I just feel like I'm nitpicking everything. And that part's not fun for me because we're coach-led right now. We're not player-led.
I love it, man. Yeah, this has been fantastic. Coach Troche, man, I appreciate you taking the time for us, taking the time with us and kind of pouring into our listeners. But before I let you go, I'd love for you to share any social media that you got, anywhere people can just kind of keep up with the progress of Luther and yourself as a coach and maybe ask questions that they might have after listening to the podcast.
Yeah, mine is Coach Troche 5'6". Troche spelled Troche. Follow me or Luther Football, and then you'll see our staff on there. Again, we're just going to be really black and white about who we are. We're going to paint a really clear picture. You're going to know that we want you, and you're going to know that we're really intentional about the things that we do. Nothing happens by accident. We got great kids. The one consistent answer I got from our kids when I asked them about all the different things, said why Luther, because they haven't had a lot of success in football. They said it's the people in the community. And if we can, when we get this thing rolling, it's going to be a giant.
No doubt. I'll be cheering you on, Coach. Look forward to seeing you in Charlotte in 23. Thanks so much for your time.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate you.
All righty. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Inside the Headset. If you heard anything on this episode that you would like to learn more information about, head over to afcapodcast.com where you can find every episode and all of the corresponding show notes. While you're there, take a second to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions for the show, please let us know by sending an email to podcast@afca.com. Make sure to follow the podcast on Twitter @InsideTheHeadset and tag it when you share each episode. You can stay up to date with all things AFCA by following the @WeAreAFCA Twitter account. Every episode of Inside the Headset can also be found on your favorite audio streaming platforms such as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. If you are not currently a member of the AFCA, be sure to find us online at afca.com and apply to join over 10,000 NFL, college, and high school coaches from around the country who are striving to be the best they can be. With an AFCA membership, you gain invaluable access to the annual AFCA convention, the bi-monthly magazine, and the new and improved digital library, which contains thousands of videos and articles contributed by hundreds of current and former football coaches. You can also visit AFCAinsider.com to sign up for our free weekly email newsletter on the right-hand side of the screen. It comes out every Tuesday at lunch and is filled with great articles and stories written by many of the same coaches you hear on the podcast. It's geared to help you become a better coach tomorrow than you are today. Be sure to connect with me on Twitter at Coach Mario Price, and remember, the AFCA is not just an annual convention. It is an association that continually promotes education, guidance, and networking. But it is also so much more than that. The AFCA is about celebrating the past and educating the future. It is about developing great coaches who will produce great teams and even better people. So invest in your skill set and impact today by engaging with the AFCA.